I found a note from my dad I hadn't seen in 20 years, and it changed everything. It started with a guilt trip. "Just go help her," my sister Amy said over the phone, half whispering while juggling a toddler on her hip. "She had surgery. You're the one with no kids and no excuse." So that's how I ended up on a creaky wooden ladder. Sweat dripping down my back, hauling down old boxes from the attic of the house I hadn't lived in since I was a teenager. My mom had hip surgery 2 weeks prior. She was recovering okay, still her usual stubborn self. But the doctor told her to rest, which she interpreted as supervise while other people do the work. "Be careful up there," she called from below. Voice raspy with years of coffee and menthols. "That box marked Easter is full of glass. You drop it, I'll drop you." "Got it," I muttered, rolling my eyes even though she couldn't see. The attic hadn't changed. Same smell, insulation, mildew, old cardboard, same oppressive heat. I worked my way through stacks of boxes, most marked with her familiar loopy handwriting. Xmas, cables, toys, kitchen crap. I was reaching for a box labeled Photos 1991,1995 when I spotted it. A plain, unlabeled banker's box, jammed behind an old suitcase and a broken oscillating fan, covered in a thick layer of dust. Out of curiosity more than anything else, I dragged it into the light. Inside, a tangle of unrelated junk. A couple of VHS tapes, a faded yearbook, a toy car I vaguely remembered playing with as a kid, and buried near the bottom, under a pile of old receipts and birthday cards and envelope. My name was written across the front in black ink. Ben. Slanted, purposeful, masculine handwriting. I recognized it instantly. It was the kind of handwriting that left an imprint even after 20 years. It was my dad's, and I hadn't seen or heard from him since I was 9 years old. He'd left on a Wednesday. I remember because that was spaghetti night. One minute he was yelling at the TV, the next he was throwing clothes into a duffel bag, and the next gone. No long goodbye. No explanations. Just a slammed door and the sound of tires on gravel. My mom had always said he didn't want a family. He couldn't handle responsibility. I stopped asking questions around age 11, but now here I was, holding a letter addressed to me from the man I'd spent most of my adult life pretending didn't exist. "Ben," my mom shouted from downstairs. "There's egg salad if you're hungry." I slipped the envelope into the pocket of my hoodie. "Be down in a sec," I yelled back. My heart was pounding, hands a little shaky. I kept going through the boxes like nothing had happened, but I didn't register a single item I touched after that. That night, once Mom had gone to bed, and the house had settled into its usual hum of silence and creaking floorboards, I pulled the envelope from my pocket. It was still sealed. The flap had yellowed slightly but hadn't been tampered with. For a moment, I just stared at it. Part of me thought maybe I should burn it, or throw it away, or pretend I never found it. But curiosity, or maybe something deeper, won out. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper, folded into thirds. It read, "Ben, if you're reading this, then your mother never gave it to you. I didn't leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I wasn't allowed to stay. You'll understand one day. I hope you grow up to be kind. I hope you don't inherit my ghosts. Love always, Dad." That was it. No explanation. No details. No return address. Just a riddle in 12 lines. I read it 3 times, trying to hear his voice behind the words. But all I remembered was yelling and the clink of beer bottles. The phrase, "I wasn't allowed to stay," stuck in my head like a splinter. What the hell did that mean? The rest of the night I barely slept. I lay awake replaying moments I hadn't thought about in decades. My dad showing me how to grip a baseball bat. The time he let me eat 3 drumsticks in one meal just because Mom wasn't home. His heavy footsteps in the hallway when he came home late. The bad memories were louder. The slammed doors. The fights. My mom crying in the bathroom with the shower running. Still something about the letter felt real. Like he'd tried. Like maybe, just maybe, there was more to the story. The next morning, over coffee, I asked Mom a question I hadn't asked in years. Did Dad ever leave a letter for me? She didn't even look up from her crossword. No, not one he gave you before he left? Nothing? Her eyes narrowed. She set her pencil down. "Why are you asking me that?" I didn't answer, just stared at her. After a moment, she looked away. "You're really going to start digging that old crap up now?" she muttered. I said nothing. Her voice went tight. "He left. That's all there is. You don't know what it was like." I almost told her then. About the box. About the envelope. But I didn't. Instead, I took a drive. I needed air. I needed answers. And I needed someone who might still remember my father for more than just his absence. I drove to the one place I hadn't visited in nearly 15 years, my Uncle Dave's house. And that's when things started getting complicated. Uncle Dave lived on the outskirts of town, in a squat ranch-style house that hadn't changed since the Clinton administration. White paint peeling, rusted wind chimes on the porch, and one of those plastic owls meant to scare off birds that had long since faded to an unholy gray. I hadn't seen him in years, not since Grandma's funeral. He and my mom had a falling out afterward. Something about money or pride, or maybe both. I never asked, but I remembered this. He was Dad's younger brother, and when I was a kid, Dave was the only one who ever told me stories about what Dad was like before everything went south. I parked by the curb and walked up the path, gravel crunching under my boots. The late morning sun was already baking the sidewalk. The screen door creaked when I knocked. I heard shuffling inside. The thump of something dropped, and then the door cracked open. Uncle Dave looked older. A lot older. Grayer. Softer around the edges. Eyes red-rimmed like he'd either been drinking or crying or both. He squinted at me for a second. "Ben?" "Yeah," I said, suddenly unsure of myself. "Hey!" He pushed the door open wider. "Well, I'll be damned. You look just like your dad." I stepped inside, trying not to flinch at that. The living room was small and smelled faintly of pipe smoke and lemon furniture polish. Same old lazy boy in the corner. Same crooked picture of the family cabin from a vacation I barely remembered. "You want coffee?" he asked, already moving toward the kitchen. "Sure." We sat on the porch, him in his recliner, me on the edge of a wobbly bench. He handed me a mug, black and chipped, and lit a cigarette. The smoke curled around his face as he looked out across the dead lawn. "So," he said after a minute, "what brings you here?" I didn't know how to ease into it, so I didn't try. "I found a letter," I said. "From my dad." He turned toward me, slowly. "A letter? In the attic. In a box. It was addressed to me." "What did it say?" I recited the contents from memory. Dave didn't interrupt, but the cigarette burned low between his fingers, untouched. When I finished, he nodded slowly. "Sounds like something he'd write. You know what it means?" He took a long drag, then exhaled hard. "Depends what you want it to mean." "Dave," I said, leaning forward. "He wrote that he wasn't allowed to stay, that Mom never gave me the letter." "What the hell happened?" He stared at the ashtray for a long time. Then, "Your dad made mistakes. Big ones. But he loved you. That much I know." "That doesn't answer my question," he sighed. "You really want to know?" "Yeah, I'm not 9 anymore." He rubbed his forehead, then nodded. "All right. You deserve to know, but it ain't pretty." He paused again, like he was still trying to decide whether to say it. "Your dad got caught cheating," Dave finally said. "Your mom found out, but that wasn't the worst part." I swallowed. "What was?" "She found out who it was with." He flicked ash into the tray. Looked me straight in the eyes. "It was her sister." My stomach twisted. "Aunt Karen?" Dave nodded grimly. "Happened while your mom was in the hospital for a few days. Your dad was drinking a lot back then. Karen came by to help with you and Amy. One night turned into 2. You can guess the rest." I sat back, reeling. "Mom never told me that. She didn't want you to hate him, and she didn't want to hate her sister either. So she buried it." I shook my head. "Jesus." Dave leaned forward. "Your mom gave him an ultimatum. Leave, and never come back. And he agreed, took a bag and drove off. And the letter? I don't know. Maybe he left it in the mailbox. Maybe he gave it to your mom and she never passed it along. You'll have to ask her that." "I did." She lied. He just nodded, like he expected that. Then something else occurred to me. Why didn't he try to reach me? After all these years, Dave didn't answer right away. Then, he tried. Once, about 5 years after he left. Wanted to take you for a weekend. Your mom told him if he came near you or Amy again, she'd call the cops. Said she'd tell the court he was violent, unstable. Was he? Dave took a long pause. He had a temper, but he wasn't a monster. The silence sat heavy between us. Then Dave stood up, went back inside without a word. I thought maybe he was done, but he came back a minute later holding a shoebox. He handed it to me. "What's this?" "Stuff your dad sent me over the years. Photos, letters, things he didn't think you'd ever see. I was gonna burn it all after he died." I froze. "He's dead." Dave nodded. 3 years ago. Liver cancer. I felt nothing, then guilt for feeling nothing. He wanted to reach out, Dave added, but he figured it just caused more pain. I looked down at the box. I guess I need to read these. Dave nodded, hand on my shoulder. You do. But take your time, Ben. This stuff, it'll mess with your head. I thanked him and left, shoebox on the passenger seat, my mind spiraling. The man I'd hated for most of my life, the man I thought abandoned me, might have been trying to do the right thing the whole time. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was realizing that Mom had lied about everything. I didn't open the box right away. I drove around for an hour, looping aimlessly through our quiet suburb, past the park where I used to play baseball, the coffee shop where I had my first job, and the high school parking lot where I kissed Julia Barnett for the first and last time. The shoebox sat beside me like a bomb, heavy with things I didn't know if I wanted to see. Eventually, I went home. Amy was still out, probably at work, or dodging my calls. I didn't blame her. I left the box on my desk and stared at it while I made myself a grilled cheese I barely touched. Finally, around midnight, I opened it. Inside, a stack of old Polaroids, me on a tricycle, me blowing out birthday candles, me asleep on his chest, dozens of letters. Some still sealed, some opened. A small metal lighter engraved with BBR, Junior, my initials. A wrinkled drawing I'd made as a kid. Stick figures labeled me and Dad, holding hands under a crooked sun. The first letter I read started with, Ben, if you're reading this, it means Dave found his balls and gave you the box. I laughed through tears. The rest of the letter, 5 pages, handwritten, was messy, rambling, but sincere. He owned everything. The affair, the drinking, the pain he'd caused. Your mom had every right to hate me. I hated myself. But I never, ever stopped loving you. I didn't sleep that night. I read every letter, every apology, every memory he thought I'd forgotten. There was one that broke me completely. Used to call me Daddy-O. Remember that? I'd say, Daddy-O's tired, and you'd say, then take a nap on the moon. I still say that sometimes when I'm worn out. The next morning I drove to Mom's. She was in the kitchen, folding laundry. She smiled when she saw me, a tired, cautious smile. You're up early, she said. Want some coffee? I want the truth. The smile faded. What's this about? I dropped the lighter on the table. She stared at it like it was radioactive. You knew, I said. You knew he was trying to reach me. You knew he left me a letter. You made me believe he walked away and never looked back. She slowly sat down, folded her hands, said nothing. Why, Mom? Her voice was calm, too calm, because I was protecting you. From what? Him or the truth? She looked me dead in the eyes. From becoming him. I flinched. You don't know what he was like, she said. After you went to sleep, after he had a few drinks, when the guilt started eating him alive, he'd scream at the walls, slam doors, punch holes in the drywall. I thought he'd hit me one night. I truly did. He never hit you? No. But he scared me. That was enough. I sat down across from her. So instead of letting me decide what kind of man he was, you just erased him. I tried to erase the pain, she said. For you. For Amy. For me. It didn't work. I know that now. We sat in silence. Then she added, almost to herself, I didn't want to be the woman whose husband slept with her sister. I didn't want that to be your story. But it was. She wiped her eyes. Yes, it was. I almost left right then, but something held me there. You lied to me for 20 years, I said. You don't just get to explain it away. I know, she whispered, and I'll carry that. I stood. I have more of his letters. I'm going to read all of them, and I'm going to decide for myself who he was. She nodded. You should. And one more thing, I said, pausing in the doorway. You said you were protecting me from becoming him? Yes. Well, congratulations. You failed. She didn't answer. She just closed her eyes as I walked out. The next few days were a blur of anger and confusion. I called Amy again, left a voicemail this time. I know the truth, all of it. Please call me back. She didn't. Instead, I got a text from her 2 days later. Come by Saturday. Noon. We'll talk. Bring the box. I had no idea what she meant by the box. I figured maybe she just wanted to see the letters. I was wrong. Saturday came. When I pulled into Amy's driveway, she was already outside, arms folded tight. She looked like hell. No makeup, eyes puffy. She opened the door without a word. I followed her in. On the dining table sat a box almost identical to mine. Same size, same faded cardboard, different handwriting. What's that? I asked. She exhaled. Dad sent me one too. I sat down slowly, eyes locked on the box. It was stuffed like mine but cleaner. Taped shut. My name was scrawled on the side of mine. This one said, "For Amy. Open when you're ready." The handwriting was unmistakable, bold, inconsistent, like someone trying too hard to look confident. Amy pushed it toward me. "I haven't opened it yet." "You haven't?" I blinked. "Why not?" She looked away. "Because I wasn't sure I wanted to. I spent my entire life being told what a monster he was. I built a whole personality around hating him. I wasn't sure who I'd be if that changed. I got it. God, I got it. You still don't know if you want to open it?" She didn't answer right away. "I figured if you'd read yours and decided it was just BS, I'd toss mine. But if there was something real in there, then maybe we should open it together." I pulled my box from my backpack and put it beside hers. It felt symbolic, like we were unlocking a part of ourselves neither of us had wanted to confront alone. Amy sat down. "Tell me everything. Start from the beginning." So I did. I told her about Dave, our dad's friend, the bar, the napkin, the letters. I showed her the photo of me on his lap, the one where we were both laughing, holding ice cream cones smeared and sticky. She stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "I remember that day. I thought it was some random guy." We opened her box together. Inside were letters just like mine, but hers were different. Most were sealed. Some were addressed with dates. "Amy, on your 18th birthday. Amy, if you graduate. Amy, if I never see you again." There were drawings too. From him. One was of her, wearing a ridiculous crown and holding a sword. Beneath it, he'd written in shaky print, "Amy the Brave, slayer of spiders and destroyer of broccoli." She snorted. I was terrified of spiders. "You still are. I still destroy broccoli too." She picked up one of the letters and stared at it like it might burn her fingers. "Want to read it together?" I asked. "No. Ein." Her voice was quiet but firm. "Not yet. I need to do this alone." I nodded. I understood. We sat in silence for a while. Then she said, "Do you think Mom knew about this box?" "Absolutely." Amy looked disgusted. "She let me cry myself to sleep for years thinking he hated me. She watched me break every time someone asked if I had a dad. She thought she was protecting us. She wasn't." "I know." Amy finally looked at me. "So what do we do with all this?" I exhaled. "I don't know." She looked down at the letter in her hand. "He was a shitty dad. He messed up. But he tried." "Yeah," I said. "He really did." There was a long pause. Then she added, almost to herself, "I think I want to meet Dave." I blinked. "Really? If he's still alive? If he's willing? I want to know the guy Dad trusted with all this. I already got his number. Can you text him?" I hesitated, then pulled out my phone and sent a message. "Hey, it's Ben. Amy wants to talk. That okay?" The response came within minutes. "Of course. I've been waiting for that for a long time." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the image of Amy holding that letter like it was made of glass. Something had shifted between us, not magically healed, but softened. Around 2 a.m. my phone buzzed. A message from Amy. "Just finished the first letter." He remembered everything. My lisp, my purple lunchbox, the way I made Dad check under the bed every night until I was 10. Everything. I'm crying, but not the bad kind. "Thank you for finding him." I stared at the screen for a long time. I didn't know what to say. Eventually, I just typed back, "He never really left us. We just didn't know where to look." A week later, we met Dave at a little diner halfway between our cities. He was older than I remembered. Grayer, more hunched. But his smile, that familiar, crooked, apologetic smile, was exactly the same. Amy didn't hug him. Not at first. She just sat across from him and asked, "Why didn't you fight harder?" He didn't flinch. "Because I thought I'd lost the right." She nodded slowly, then said, "Well, maybe you didn't." They talked for 3 hours. They cried. I watched a piece of my life I thought was dead come back to life in real time. At one point, Dave pulled out a photo, a faded shot of Amy and me sitting on his lap, covered in ketchup and smiles. Amy touched it gently. "I don't remember this," she whispered. "You don't have to," Dave said. "I remembered for you." When we stood to leave, Amy finally hugged him. It was short, awkward, but it was real. She whispered, "Thank you for writing." And he whispered back, "Thank you for reading." Life didn't go back to normal. It couldn't, but it moved slowly, unevenly, like a record with a scratch that still plays music if you're patient enough. Amy and I started talking more, not every day, but more than we had in the past 10 years combined. Some days it was just memes. Other days, she'd send me photos of old birthday cards Dad wrote her that she'd kept hidden under her mattress for years. I didn't even know she had them. I used to read them whenever I was mad at Mom. She texted once, like a secret rebellion. We never confronted Mom. Not directly. Not yet. Part of me wanted to scream at her, to throw the boxes on the table and ask how she could erase an entire person from our lives. But the truth was, she wasn't just some villain in a story. She was our mom. She cooked us dinner, stayed up when we were sick, paid bills, and read to us every night. Her hands shook when she was stressed. Her voice cracked when she tried to lie. She was a person. Complicated and scared. Still, something had to give. So one Sunday afternoon, I asked if she wanted to go for a walk. She was wary. Just us? Yeah. The air was cool. Fall was creeping in. We passed the park I used to bike through as a kid. The corner store she used to let me buy candy from if I got all else. We didn't say anything until we were halfway through the trail. I found Dad, I said. Her shoulders tensed, but she didn't stop walking. I read the letters. Amy's too. She still didn't speak. I tried to stay calm. Why didn't you tell us he tried to stay in touch? She inhaled slowly. Because it would have made things harder. For who? For all of us, she said sharply, then immediately softened. Ben, your father, he wasn't well. He couldn't take care of himself, let alone 2 kids. He hurt me. He left. He tried to come back, yes, but he was always chaos. I didn't want to put you through more than you already had, but you didn't give us the choice. She turned toward me, eyes wet. You think I liked keeping those letters? You think I didn't cry every time one came in the mail? Then why? Because loving someone who keeps letting you down is a sickness, and I didn't want you and Amy to catch it. I stared at her. That answer didn't make me feel better, but it felt honest. Did you ever write him back? I asked. She shook her head. Not once. Do you regret it? She looked away. Every damn day. We stood there in silence. I'm meeting him next week, I said. I figured, she replied. I think you should come. She looked at me like I just told her to hug a ghost. I'm not asking you to forgive him, I added. Just maybe let him say what he couldn't before. She wiped her eyes. I don't think I'm ready. I don't think any of us are. But we're doing it anyway. She didn't answer. But she didn't say no either. Amy and I went back to the diner the next Saturday. Dave was already there. A little early. Sipping bad coffee and scribbling something in a notebook. He stood up when he saw us, still unsure whether to go in for hugs or just offer handshakes. Amy didn't make him choose. She hugged him tight, like she was holding onto a bridge between the past and future. I sat down across from them. She might come. Who? Dave asked. Mom? He froze. If she does, I added. What would you say to her? He rubbed his temples. I'd say I'm sorry. For everything. For how I left. For the yelling. For not fighting harder. I'd tell her I loved her once, and I never stopped caring about what happened to her. Even when I didn't know how to show it. He looked up at us. But I wouldn't ask her to forgive me. That's not my right. Amy's voice was quiet. She loved you. That was the problem. A long silence followed. Then Dave reached into his bag and pulled out another envelope. This is for her, he said, placing it gently on the table. I've rewritten it 100 times. Amy took it, turning it over in her fingers like a live wire. Well, give it to her. Even if she doesn't read it, I added. At least she'll know. Dave nodded. That's all I ask. Mom didn't show up that week, or the next, but she did ask me one night out of nowhere. What's he like now? I looked at her and said, trying. She didn't say anything else, but the next morning, when I checked the shelf where we kept unpaid bills and forgotten mail, the letter was gone. And in its place was a sticky note with 3 words. Tell him thank you. It wasn't a reunion. It wasn't closure, but it was something. A start. 3 weeks passed. We didn't meet Dave again during that time, not in person anyway. He sent a couple of texts, checking in, sharing an old photo he'd found of Amy in pigtails and me holding a Power Rangers toy with one arm in a cast. The kind of photo you forget exists until it makes you cry. Amy and I were rebuilding something not with tools or grand apologies, but with little things. She'd send me voice notes when she was too tired to type. I'd drop off her favorite coffee when I passed near her place. We weren't just siblings anymore. We were survivors of a shared lie. Then one Friday morning, I got a message from Mom. I'm ready. If you and Amy still want me there. I stared at my phone for a full minute before I even moved. We met at a park just outside the city. Dave was already there, sitting on a bench in a coat too light for the weather. Nervous. Smiling. He didn't see Mom at first. She walked a few steps behind us like she wasn't sure if this was real or not. When he finally looked up and saw her, he stood. Slowly. "Hi, Allison," he said. She didn't smile, but she didn't run either. She looked at him like she was trying to recognize someone under all that time. Her mouth trembled, and I couldn't tell if she was holding back tears or holding back a scream. "You look the same," she finally said. "You don't," he replied. She laughed, bitter and broken and real. Figures. They stood in silence. Amy leaned over to me and whispered, "This feels like watching a war end." "Yeah," I said, and no one's sure who won. Eventually they sat, not together, but close enough. "I read the letter," Mom said. "I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't." Dave nodded. "Fair, but I did. And I want to be clear, nothing in that letter erases what happened. You left. You scared me. You scared our kids. I know. I spent years rebuilding their trust. Mine too. And I hated you for making me do it alone. I hate myself for the same reason." More silence. The wind picked up. Leaves fell between them like pieces of old memories. "But," she added, "I also know I loved you. Deeply. Stupidly. And I never wanted to bury you the way I did." Tears welled in his eyes. "I buried myself long before you did." Amy squeezed my hand so hard it hurt. Then Mom stood up. "I'm not here for forgiveness. Not really. I'm here to say goodbye, but I didn't want to do it through another unopened letter." Dave stood too. "Thank you. That's more than I deserve." Mom walked up to him, paused, then hugged him, briefly, like a hand touching a flame just long enough to remember its heat. She let go and turned to us. "I'll be in the car." She left without another word. We didn't talk much after that. Not right away. But the tension, the weight, it started to lift. Dave didn't vanish. He messaged now and then. Sometimes funny. Sometimes quiet. Sometimes just thinking of you. We never became a traditional family. There were no holiday dinners, no birthday parties with everyone in one place. But Amy visited him once in his apartment, and he showed her every picture he'd ever saved of us. Every crayon drawing. Every letter he never dared send. She came back quiet, but smiling. "Guess he never really stopped trying," she said. And one rainy Tuesday evening I called him just to talk. We didn't say anything profound. We talked about the game, about music, about how the world feels different after 30. But when we hung up, I felt something I hadn't in years. Not closure, but peace. Reddit update post. 3 months later, "Hey everyone. Thought I'd post one last update, since a few of you asked if things ever got better. The short version is, sort of. My sister and I are in each other's lives again. It's not perfect, but it's real. We talk. We even joke sometimes. That's new. My mom and dad saw each other one last time. It wasn't magical. It wasn't cinematic, but it was human. And that's probably more important. My dad's still around. He's not trying to make up for lost time. He's just trying to be part of the time we have left. And that's enough. If you're out there holding on to something, a secret, a regret, a letter you never sent, I hope this gives you the courage to face it. Because sometimes the scariest truths are the ones that bring us home." If you like this video, please subscribe for more.